We're here at the 5th Pan-Commonwealth Forum on Open Learning. I'm here with Dr. Lidia Brito, Assistant Professor at Universidade Eduardo Mondlane in Mozambique. Good morning, Dr. Lidia Brito.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Pleasure to be here.
I hear you work with HIV/AIDS and health education. So HIV-related deaths are having a profound effect on social and economic development. What new national and local strategies in terms of education should happen?
I think that's a very important question, and in effect that's what we discussed yesterday and continue to discuss today. What's happening is that as we do civic education through radio, TV, theater, unfortunately we haven't seen open and distance learning specialists to be part of these programs. And therefore, instead of being a continuous education, a lifelong education if you want, what you have is awareness campaigns that give some information that don't really educate people about HIV/AIDS. So what we are hoping, and hopefully will be a result of this forum, is that we will see a better collaboration between ODL specialists, open and distance learning specialists, and NGOs and governments, media institutions, in order to build these awareness campaigns in such a way that it become really a lifelong education programs that we need for HIV/AIDS and for change behavior.
Excellent. Okay. So how can new open and distance learning models respond to the needs to train more health workers?
That's another interesting question. I think open and distance learning has already played quite a strong role in training healthcare specialists and workers, but more needs to be done. In effect, for Africa, I think the biggest challenge is how to multiply as fast as possible healthcare workers so that we can deal not only with HIV/AIDS pandemic, but also with related illnesses. And the models that I think that we need to start using is to deliver open distance learning in different kinds of institutions. And that's one of the beauties of this delivery method of education, is that you can really be flexible in terms where you deliver the programs. You also can be complementary to already exist in the countries as a more conventional kind of education. And so hopefully, again from this forum, from the experience that we are listening, will lead us to a much more concerted effort where healthcare workers will be on the focus of UDL programs in the future. But let me add another point that is also about teachers, because when we are talking about HIV/AIDS, we are talking about a lot of children being orphans, families being completely, wiped out, principally in the adult cohort. And so we also need to rethink how teachers will be trained to care for these children, that many of them are becoming now heads of family. I mean, in my country, I have seen 12 years, 13 years old, becoming heads of family because their parents died, their uncles died, and they have children to take care of. So how do you really fit the system, the social system, to really look after these children that suddenly got this high responsibility?
On to e-learning technologies. How can primary and secondary levels of education in Africa benefit from greater use of e-learning technologies?
E-learning for us is a huge challenge, and I think you have been here during the forum. You know that the connectivity in Africa is still very, very small, and really a challenge to many of us. And so the e-learning component has to be seen in a completely different way. And yesterday I was in one of the discussions, and the enterprise in, I think in South Africa, they were explaining now how they are using satellite technology to download information and then make them in the DVDs that can then be distributed to areas where internet connection doesn't appear. So that's one of the first challenge. Can we really have the technology? Once we have the technology, clearly e-learning is a very interesting method of teaching because can be very interactive. But again, here, the huge challenge will be language, it will be content, relevant content, and how do you appropriate or how do you make the content appropriate in terms of culture, context, and the practices that specific area that you are targeting it's there and is retained, because otherwise education has to be contextualized in terms of culture, in terms of practices, in terms of conditions, social and economical conditions. So it's e-learning as a technology. It's as that challenge of not everybody has access, but you are having alternative technologies to increase that access. But for me, the biggest challenge of e-learning is, do we have the capacity to develop content that is indeed useful?
Okay. So of these technologies, which ones are the most appropriate of the new technologies to maximize community-based education?
You know, again, it has to do with access, affordability, sustainability. What I have seen not only in Mozambique but in other African countries is the powerful role that radio and community radios can play. And also what we called in Mozambique the community multimedia centers, where really you have a combination of technologies. You have the radio, you have the TV, you have the internet. And it's this combination, and in different moments, these technologies play the main role. But in terms of sustainability, affordability, not only from the point of view of producing and delivering the content, but also from the point of view of your target groups. Yes. Clearly, radio, for me, is a very, very important technology. And for you, UDL, again, this is a challenge. How can you, through a very good coherent program, education programs through radio, you can really raise the awareness and the education level of communities in rural Africa. And if you have time, you should interview the people that are working in Gambia and Sierra Leone with radio programs on HIV. And I think you will be amazed what they are doing.
Good. So how can the private sector assist local and central government in developing e-learning technologies?
Now, clearly, the private sector has to be in board and has to be one of the main partners for several reasons. One reason has been the focus of this interview. It's about technology, yes. And clearly the private sector are developing technology. Sometimes it's proprietary technology that becomes almost prohibitive to countries like mine. So to have waivers on that, to have you know, private sector putting this technology at our disposal at affordable prices is indeed one of the roles. But also, I think in terms of human resources, you know, there are components of the private sector development and culture that we don't retain very well in education, and in a very hard way we can pass this to our children, to our young graduates. And clearly having the private sector involved also in the education process itself, I think is a win-win situation, because in one hand they can pass to us and through the education system to our people the culture, the corporate behavior, the effectiveness, the performance that you try to strive when you are in the private sector, and give the key skills that you need to do so. But at the same time, I think they will learn a lot about where they are and who are their clients by involving themselves directly with the target groups of education. And thirdly, and we have some experience in Mozambique, they basically have been partnerships with the public sector, where they help us to rebuild schools, to create distance learning centers, to support the community multimedia centers. Just basically by giving these institutions some sort of cash. And so I think they have to be part of the process. They are part of the model, and clearly they have a huge role to play if we want really to do more than we are doing now.
Dr. Lidia Brito, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.